The first time I saw the alien queen, she was dying. Her blood, if it could be called that, steamed against the frozen basalt of Carthuan's shattered moon. It shimmered like molten silver under a sky torn open by orbital bombardment. The battlefield was quiet in that terrible way only comes after thousands have screamed themselves hoarse. I should have left her there. My name is Captain Elias Rourke of the 7th Terran Expeditionary Forces. At least, that's who I was then. A soldier with orders. A man who believed in lines on a map and flags in the sky. The Carthuan War had been raging for 3 standard years. The Carthuan Imperium, an ancient, hive-bonded species of towering, bioluminescent beings, had expanded too close to human colonies. Skirmishes became blockades. Blockades became massacres. And eventually, someone fired the first planet cracker. The Queen was their center. Not merely royalty, but the living neural nexus of their civilization. She carried the genetic memory of their ancestors and the authority to command entire fleets with a thought. Intel said if she died, the Imperium would fracture. That was why I'd been sent. Our strike team infiltrated the moon fortress during the final assault. The Carthuan defenses had been overwhelmed by orbital strikes, and the surviving royal guard fought like creatures possessed. They were magnificent and horrifying, 8-limbed, armored and chitin harder than our best alloys. We lost good people in those corridors. By the time I reached the central chamber, the Queen was already fallen. The ceiling had collapsed under bombardment. A jagged beam of starlight speared through drifting debris, and beneath it lay the Queen, vast, radiant, her elongated form coiled protectively around a cluster of crystalline eggs. She was conscious. Her eyes, for luminous orbs set within a crown of translucent fronds, fixed on me as I stepped over her dead guards. I raised my rifle. She did not attack. Instead, something pressed against my mind. Not words. Not exactly. Images. Fire raining from orbit. Human ships burning in counterfire. Hatchlings crushed under falling stone. A civilization screaming as its neural web fractured. Then pain. Her pain. I staggered. My helmet's neural dampeners flickered uselessly. She was reaching into me. You are the blade, the sensation conveyed. Finish what you began. My orders were clear. But I hesitated. Behind her, the eggs pulsed faintly. Future queens. Future minds. If she died here, the Imperium would descend into chaos. Civil war, famine, extinction. Our strategists believed that would secure humanity's dominance for centuries. It would also condemn billions. I lowered my rifle. You're not my enemy, I muttered. Not really. Her eyes narrowed. Outside, another orbital strike rocked the fortress. A fissure split the floor, swallowing one of the eggs whole. The Queen's mental cry nearly drove me to my knees. That was when I made the decision that would change the galaxy. I slung my rifle over my back and activated my emergency beacon. Rourke to command, I said, breathing hard. Target located. Confirm termination. Admiral Hayes responded immediately. I looked at the dying Queen. Negative, I said. Target compromised. Structural collapse imminent. I'm extracting. There was a pause. Extracting what, Captain? I met her alien gaze. A survivor. It took everything I had to drag her to the evacuation corridor. She was immense, easily 20 meters long, and weakened by shrapnel embedded in her carapace. I sealed my suit's field generators around her wounds to slow the hemorrhaging. She watched me the entire time, silent but alert. When the extraction shuttle arrived, its pilot swore loudly over the comms. What the hell is that? Package, I replied. And she's priority one. The shuttle barely contained her. I had to vent half the cargo module to space and rig emergency restraints. As we lifted off, Carthuan fighters tried to intercept us, confused and enraged by the sight of a human vessel carrying their queen. Terran ships targeted us too. To them, I was stealing victory. We barely made it to the cruiser Resolute before both fleets began tearing each other apart in renewed fury. Admiral Hayes was waiting in the hangar when the cargo ramp lowered. He stared at the Queen in disbelief. "You've lost your mind, Rourke." "Maybe," I said. "But if she dies, this war doesn't end. It explodes." Hayes' jaw tightened. "She's responsible for millions of human deaths. And we're responsible for theirs." The Queen stirred weakly. "I can't justify this," Hayes said quietly. "You don't have to," I replied. "Court-martial me later. For now, we save her." The Admiral hesitated, just long enough. "Medical bay," he ordered. The next weeks were chaos. Word spread faster than any official statement could contain. Human citizens demanded my execution. Military command threatened to classify me as a traitor. But something unexpected happened. The Carthuan fleets withdrew. When news reached them that their queen was alive, protected aboard a Terran flagship, their assault formations broke off and formed a defensive perimeter instead. They did not attack. They waited. In the sterile glow of the medical bay, I became her guard. Her wounds healed slowly. Carthuan physiology was extraordinary, but the damage she'd sustained was catastrophic. Several times, doctors suggested euthanasia. Each time, she refused through me. Our minds remained tenuously linked since that battlefield moment. She did not invade my thoughts again without permission. Instead, she spoke. Her name did not translate cleanly into human language, but the closest approximation was Seralith.
"Why?"
she asked me one night, her voice a ripple across my consciousness. "Because I'm tired of killing," I answered. "You're a soldier."
"Yeah."
"Doesn't mean I have to be a monster." A long pause. "Your kind began this war. So did yours." Another pause. "Then perhaps both kinds are monsters." I actually laughed at that. Over time, she shared fragments of her history. The Imperium was older than human civilization by millennia. They believed themselves stewards of stability, expanding not from conquest, but from fear of chaos. Humans had seemed erratic, dangerous. We thought the same of them. Misinterpretations had stacked like dominoes until someone pushed. Meanwhile, political pressure mounted. Earth demanded the Queen be returned, dead or alive. Carthuan envoys transmitted encrypted messages, pleading for confirmation. Admiral Hayes convened a secret summit aboard the Resolute. Humans on one side of the chamber, holographic Carthuan projections on the other, and me, standing beside the Queen's immense, recovering form. "If we return her," a human diplomat argued, "the Imperium regains strength." A Carthuan envoy responded, its voice vibrating through the deck plating. "If you do not, we assume her death and unleash our final arsenal." "Mutual annihilation," Hayes muttered. Seralith's presence brushed my thoughts. "Allow me." I swallowed. "She wants to speak." Silence filled the chamber. Through our link, she projected not domination but clarity. Images of the battlefield, of me lowering my weapon, of human medics repairing alien flesh, of restraint where there had only been vengeance. Then she shared something deeper. Her own regret. She had authorized strikes that destroyed human colonies. She had believed it necessary to preserve her species. I was wrong. Her thought resonated across every mind present. And so were you. We stand at the brink because we refuse to see beyond fear. The chamber trembled, not from weapons, but from realization. For peace. Hayes asked carefully. For survival, she corrected. Together. The treaty that followed was fragile. Seralith was returned to her people under joint escort. I went with her. Officially, I was an observer. Unofficially, I was collateral, proof that humanity trusted enough to place one of its own in Carthuan territory. Their homeworld was nothing like I'd imagined. Towering crystalline spires grew organically from the landscape, glowing softly in twilight. The air hummed with harmonic vibrations, the Imperium's neural web singing in unison. When Seralith emerged from the transport vessel, millions knelt. She did not bask in it. Instead, she projected a single image across her world. A human soldier dragging her broken body from ruin. The reaction was immediate and seismic. Shock rippled through their collective consciousness. To them, humans had been predators. Brutal. Unpredictable. Now, I stood as living contradiction. This one spared me, Seralith told them. If an enemy can choose mercy, then so can we. Reforms began almost at once. Expansion halted. Borders stabilized. Joint exploration initiatives were proposed. Not everyone approved. Within both species, hardliners seethed. 3 months after the treaty, the first assassination attempt occurred. It targeted me. A Carthuan extremist infiltrated the diplomatic complex. They believed I had corrupted their queen. That peace with humans would dilute their genetic and cultural purity. I survived only because Seralith felt the intent through the neural web milliseconds before the attack. Her guards neutralized the threat. Later, as medics treated the minor burns along my arm, she spoke softly in my mind. They fear change. Yeah, I said. Humans too. Does that make you afraid? Terrified, I admitted. But I'm more afraid of going back. Years passed. The war did not resume. Instead, trade routes opened. Scientific collaborations flourished. Carthuan bioengineering combined with human ingenuity led to breakthroughs in medicine and propulsion. But peace at a cost. By sparing Seralith, humanity had altered the balance of power. The Imperium remained intact, stronger, perhaps, than before. Yet now it was bound by treaty and shared vision. Other galactic powers took notice. They had expected humanity and the Carthuan to destroy each other, clearing space for opportunistic expansion. Instead, they saw alliance. A warrior species tempered by compassion. An ancient empire humbled by near extinction. Together, rumors spread of a new bloc forming. Of fleets integrating technologies. Of soldiers training alongside once bitter enemies. And at the center of it all was the story of a battlefield choice. I eventually resigned my commission. Not out of shame, but because I no longer needed a rifle to serve. Seralith appointed me as official liaison between our species. We stood together often on the observation balcony of her spire, watching twin suns set over her world. You altered destiny, she told me once. I just made a call, I replied. A call that echoes still. She was right. The galaxy trembled, not because of impending war, but because of uncertainty. For the first time in recorded history, 2 rival powers had chosen understanding over annihilation. That frightened those who thrived on conflict. Pirate coalitions dissolved under joint patrols. Slaving empires retreated when confronted by combined fleets. Smaller civilizations sought our protection, not domination. And in council chambers far beyond our borders, strategists whispered, if humans could show mercy to their greatest enemy, what else were they capable of? If the Carthuan queen herself could admit fault, what did that mean for rigid hierarchies elsewhere? The tremble was not from fear of destruction. It was from the ground shifting beneath ancient assumptions. On the anniversary of the war's end, Seralith addressed both our species simultaneously. I stood beside her, a simple human among luminous giants. "We once believed strength was measured in conquest," she declared. "We now know it is measured in restraint." She turned her vast, radiant gaze toward me. One soldier proved that. I felt heat rise to my face. I had never wanted statues or legends. But I understood something then. History does not pivot on grand strategies alone. Sometimes it turns on a single heartbeat, the space between raising a weapon and lowering it. The galaxy trembled because it had witnessed that heartbeat. And it realized the future was no longer written in blood. It was written in choice. The tremor began at the edge of known space. Not a physical quake, not the detonation of some forgotten superweapon, but a ripple through politics, alliances, and fear. A small coalition of opportunistic powers, those who had quietly armed both humanity and the Carthuan during the war, decided peace was bad for business. They called themselves the Meridian Compact. They had grown wealthy selling weapons, intelligence, and mercenaries to both sides. The Terran, Carthuan Treaty had shattered their influence. Trade routes once dominated by their fleets were now protected by joint patrols. Their leverage was evaporating, so they chose escalation. Their first move was subtle. A human agricultural colony near the Perseid Expanse was attacked by ships broadcasting Carthuan signatures. Survivors described bioluminescent hull markings and plasma weapon patterns consistent with Imperium design. Within hours, outrage spread across human networks. Hardline factions seized on it immediately. "We trusted them," commentators shouted. "And they stabbed us in the back." Simultaneously, a Carthuan outpost along the Vale corridor was struck by vessels using Terran drive flares and ballistic weaponry. The Compact had studied both species carefully. They knew exactly which wounds to reopen. On Serelith's world, the neural web vibrated with confusion and rising anger. Across human space, fleets shifted to high alert. I stood once more on the balcony of her spire, watching defense craft streak across the sky. "It's a setup," I said. "Yes," Serelith agreed. "But proof must be shown, not assumed." That was the difference now. Years ago, either side would have retaliated instantly. Now we investigated. A joint task force was assembled, human intelligence officers, Carthuan tacticians, and a handful of independent observers from smaller systems who had thrown their support behind the alliance. And for reasons both symbolic and practical, I was asked to lead it. Not as a soldier, as a bridge. We traced energy signatures, compared debris patterns, analyzed drive wake anomalies. The attackers had replicated our technologies well, but not perfectly. They had overlooked something subtle, the harmonic resonance embedded in authentic Carthuan propulsion fields, a signature impossible to mimic without access to their neural lattice. Likewise, their imitation of Terran ballistic systems lacked microvariations caused by human-made fabrication tolerances. It was enough. The Meridian Compact had overplayed its hand. When confronted with evidence before a multi-species council, their delegates denied everything. Until Serelith spoke. She did not project anger. She projected truth. She opened fragments of the neural web to the council, showing the moment she felt the false flag assault occur, showing her immediate recognition that it did not originate from her fleets. Then she allowed them to see something deeper. The memory of the battlefield on Carthuan's shattered moon. The moment a human soldier lowered his rifle. The Compact had believed the alliance was political convenience. They had not understood it was personal. And personal bonds are harder to break. The council ruled swiftly. Sanctions were imposed. Trade embargoes enacted. But the Compact was cornered and desperate. They launched a final gambit, a coordinated strike aimed not at colonies, not at fleets, but at Serelith herself. They believed that if the Queen died, the Imperium would fracture again. Humanity would be forced into defensive posture.
Chaos would return.
Their stealth vessels breached the outer defenses using stolen encryption codes. Explosive drones streaked toward the royal spire. I was at her side when alarms blared. "You must evacuate," she urged. "Not happening," I said, already moving. Human and Carthuan guards formed a perimeter. The first explosion rocked the lower levels of the spire, sending crystalline shards cascading like lethal rain. For a heartbeat, I was back on that ruined moon, smoke, fire, a dying queen beneath falling debris. History had circled back. Only this time, we were ready. Joint defense protocols activated. Carthuan bioshields interlocked with Terran energy barriers, creating a layered defense neither species could have generated alone. Enemy drones breached the first perimeter. I fired again for the first time in years. Not out of hatred, out of protection. Seralith did not retreat. She extended her consciousness through the neural web, guiding interceptors with impossible precision. Human pilots responded to her real-time projections, trusting an alien mind with their lives. One drone slipped through. It hurtled toward the balcony where we stood, warhead primed. I lunged. Impact. Pain flared across my side as I tackled the device over the railing. We tumbled onto a lower platform. My armor absorbed most of the blast, but the shockwave shattered my visor and left my ears ringing. Above, the last of the compact vessels were being torn apart by combined fire. Silence fell. I lay staring at twin suns filtered through drifting smoke.